Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Corey. Good evening, Littleton, and welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, April 5th. We will begin tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which
for which it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all.
Thanks, Joe.
So we're going to begin tonight's meeting with organization and a reading of the mail. That will be followed by a select board discussion with the Littleton Business Association. James Kennedy will be joining us to talk with an update about the Littleton Business Association. That will be followed by a discussion with Nathan Long and A10 Associates. At 7 p.m. we have the liquor license, Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza of Littleton LLC, change of officer beneficial interest. That will be followed by public input and members updates. At 7:15, we have department and board updates and requests. We're going to meet with the Sustainability Committee to hear an update from that group, as well as the Water Department to hear an update about PFAS. At 8 p.m., we will have an execution of quitclaim deeds, acceptance of 5 parcels of land shown as open space parcels A, B, C, D, and E, and execution of quitclaim deed, and acceptance of streets, Balsam Lane, Cypress Lane, Douglas Street, Fir Lane, Fraser Street, Red Cedar Way, and Spruce Street, and execution of quitclaim deed. That will be followed by annual town meeting warrants for June 12th, 2021. Update regarding Littleton stormwater bylaw changes. Oh, wait. No, right. That's right. Rebecca Leachy from Town Council's office will be joining us, and we'll review and insert articles for the annual town meeting. At 8:40 p.m., the town administrator and assistant town administrator will provide an update, an annual report dedication, donation of land parcels U14-51-0 University Drive and U1450-0 Manchester Drive, an execution of an agreement for the DHCD Local Rapid Recovery Plan, LRRP, and then designate a special municipal employee status for the STWOP. I'm not quite
senior
sure.
Senior tax work-off program.
Thank you, Mr. Ansaldi, for Susan Raymond. That will be followed at 9 p.m. by meeting minutes. The select board will review their meeting minutes from March 22nd, 2021. And at 9:05, we will be adjourning tonight's meeting.
Or earlier.
Here. So if we could, Mr. Ansaldi, do we have an email to share this evening?
Just one thing, Madam Chair. The April edition of the Broadcaster was out, so it was been forwarded to the board and full of good information. I just wanted everybody to have an opportunity to take a peek at that, and that's all we have for the mail.
Okay. And is there a way for residents to sign up to receive the Broadcaster?
Yes, there is. I believe if they go to the website, Joe, is there do you know offhand, is there a link in the EHS where they can sign up for the Broadcaster? You're muted.
I put you on the spot. I apologize. I just think some residents might be interested in signing up.
You're still muted, Joe. Yeah, Cindy, there is a way. I believe that if you just go to this email notification sign up, that they can select broadcast or go right to the EHS website.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anthony, for those that don't have email or aren't tech savvy, I think it can be mailed to their home as well, right?
That's right. Yeah, it does get mailed. I forget the total number, but they mail thousands of a month out.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. So next on the agenda, we're going to be joined by the Littleton Business Association. Do we have James Kennedy on the call?
Yep. Just give me a second while I bring him in.
Hi, James. You're muted.
1 second. There. Is that
There you
better?
go. Yes,
Great.
how are you?
Very good. Thank you for inviting us. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. You're welcome. So we invited you to come in. We just wanted to touch base with you. Certainly, in light of the pandemic and this past year, I'm sure it's been very difficult for businesses in Littleton. So we just wanted to touch base with the business association, see what's new, and see if there's anything that we can do as a community to support you or support businesses in our town.
Sure. No, thank you. We really appreciate this. First and foremost, there are some agenda items that the Business Association had started a while back. This is back during the master planning process, where we were hoping to kind of kickstart economic development in town with a sewer, and hoping that we could possibly sewer the common and help improve the, walkability of it, and improve the, attractiveness of going to the common, and other areas of the town as well. So we would love to see that continue and move forward at a quicker pace. And rather than doing incremental improvements to the sewer, really move forward with a little bit more rapid process. We should go back to the master plan and really take a look at that, because there are a lot of economic development guidelines and desires that the town had that were outlined there that we want to focus on.
Okay.
Secondly, we totally want to be more involved with the EDC. Love to attend meetings and see that become more of a prosperous organization and make a difference. And lastly, I'd like to help you recruit people who understand marketing to help you market the town better, to be part of the EDC. There are a lot of professionals in town who are really good marketers, especially digital marketing. I think that is one of the areas that is most promising. Marketing on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. There's a big opportunity for the town there to promote what we have to offer. There's, looking around after the pandemic, when people start getting their vaccinations, they're going to be looking for things to do, places to go. And there's just a lot to do in Littleton. And we want to put that best foot forward and make sure everybody knows that this is the destination where you can find great things to do in town. That's
Okay.
pretty much it.
Okay. Excellent. I'm gonna, so we have, Chuck DeCoste, who's a member of our board, is the lead for the EDC, the Economic Development Committee. So I don't know if you wanted to respond, Mr. DeCoste?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jim, thanks very much for being here and for all you do for setting up the LBA to begin with, and for your involvement anytime we've had anything come up and we needed to kind of get the word out to the business community. You've been a big help in that area. A lot of what you said is fantastic. I think I know Cindy and I have, thanks, honey. Cindy and I have talked about a couple of different means to try to recruit more folks to get on the EDC. The folks that are on there right now I think we've got some key players that are the right players, but we've only got 4 players. We need 7. So we are looking to recruit some folks. And if you've got a pool of folks that we could tap into, especially if they have the kinds of skills that you're talking about with that electronic marketing and social media and those kinds of experiences, that would absolutely benefit us. Previous EDC had put together a video to try to help market the town, and I think that we just seem to be gaining some momentum, and then for whatever reason, people's lives get busy and they're unable to maintain their commitment and stay engaged with EDC, with the Economic Development Committee. And so we just have these peaks and valleys. And what I'd like to try to do is exactly what you said. And Cindy and I have talked about this, and we've been on the Westford Business Association recently. I think the chair invited us all to that. And she and I attended, and Anthony was on it and did a presentation. And the the Westford Business Association has been hosting that, I think, for 7 years now. And we learned a lot for that. And there were a lot of, there's a lot of input in a lot of mention of different Acton and Westford specifically, as well as Chelmsford's economic development committees and the involvement that they have within their communities. And it's like hand in glove. So we definitely want to get to that point. I think we're at the kind of creep, crawl, walk, run phase. We want to get to run as quickly as possible. And we've gotten, I think, up to the walk stage a couple of times, and we're falling back just because of lack of continuity of membership. So absolutely love to lock arms with you, Jim, and with Caroline Armstrong, our chair. Vanessa Strong's on the committee, John Bergeron, and Brendan Davis. So there are some folks that bring a lot of skill sets that we definitely need, but I think that your offer to help us to fill those other roles would help us get to that next level. One of the things that I'm sorry.
How quickly could we get started? Because people are getting their vaccinations very quickly. It's really moving fast, and the sooner we can get the word out, the more likely we're going to take advantage of that benefit of getting.
So we're hoping to adjourn by 9:15 tonight, Jim. I'd be happy to give you a call at 9:16.
Okay, great. Sounds good to me.
No, absolutely. We need to get this moving. Actually, one of the agenda items in the preliminary draft agenda that we had for this meeting was an update from the EDC, and I asked the chair to kind of pull that back. We have somewhat of a summit just to pull ourselves back together again, working with the town administrator, the assistant town administrator, the chair, myself, and a couple of members of the EDC to try to look at what other communities are doing and try to figure out what our best next steps forward are to be able to have that hand in glove type of relationship between the Economic Development Committee and our different department heads. We don't have an economic development department. Perhaps one of the things that we could look at as we potentially get some money from the federal government in the next round of CARES funding, maybe this would be something that we could use some foresight and say, this is something that truly would help benefit our business community and our town as a whole by funding a position like that. So that I'm kind of going astray here a little bit, but
Sure, that sounds great.
I definitely want to. We'll definitely speak. If not tonight, Jim, I'll certainly reach out to you tomorrow and see if we can.
I love your idea. I love your idea of having a designated person in town for people in the business association, business community to be able to reach out to for help. That would be huge for new business development, new companies that come in and are looking just for answers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all game for that.
Yeah, that's a lot of what my members' update is tonight is relative to some of the steps that we've taken down that road. So, yeah, you and I can speak offline and talk about how we can try to put some of those things in place, Jim. But yeah, I'd love to work with you.
Great, sounds good.
Excellent. All right,
Madam
good.
Chair, if I could,
Please.
I just want to commend Mr. Kennedy for keeping the LBA together and putting so much energy, and it's tough even during COVID and before to take busy business people who are making a living and keep them organized. And he's done it for now. I think he was supposed to be the president for 2 years. He's probably going on 5 for now, but I just want to commend him for all the work he's done to keep things going.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. And we have a lot of work to do though, still moving forward. So no rest for the weary.
True. Mr. Glavy?
I just because the timing seems appropriate, I was going to make this as a member update. I had an opportunity to meet Friday afternoon with Emily Byrne, the district director for Congresswoman Laurie Trahan, on not specific to the topic at hand, but it obviously came up as a major part of conversation in light of the infrastructure bill at the federal level and its particular potential applicability to our sewer project, which we've been hoping for the longest time, and it seems like the stars are aligned. To quote her, we're building the plane as we're flying it. So we don't know exactly, nor do they, what the parameters are going to be, but we were well served. And, Anthony had got in a letter, I guess, on Wednesday or Thursday to meet their deadline for getting our priorities spoken to. They were already aware of it, obviously, but I had a chance to brief Anthony this afternoon and Cindy this morning, about what we know at this point. And it's good. We've got work to do on our end, especially about fast tracking engineering work, but they are specifically upbeat about a sewer project that features a quirk and its role as a model that helps sell it as something that could be funded by the federal government infrastructure bill. Since that was always part of our original plan, I don't think it would be hard to reset to that point. But in any event, significant dollars may well be in the offing, and more to that to follow. And they're going to use Anthony as a contact point on that. With their office, and as they learn things, so will we. But the parameters right now in terms of time frame is that they expect the bill to be passed this summer. They expect to be able to award checks in the fall. So we're probably looking at a fall town meeting, either our regular one or potentially, if needed, a special town meeting to do the things we need to do to be willing to accept a check. But at a bare minimum, they're not looking to fund things that are years in the offing. They're looking to fund things that are, the old phrase is shovel ready. So the closest we can get there in terms of engineering, which has already been approved, the engineering financing piece by town meeting. Hopefully, if we can act on that, we're in good shape to move forward. There's a lot of work for a lot of us parties, us, the light and water commissioners, et cetera, to bring that together. And, as I say, there were more unknowns than knowns when I spoke with her on Friday, but the signals at this stage are good, and we need that.
That'll be
Excellent.
fantastic. I would love to get more on that, Paul. I think, that's a great way to go. The Biden administration is certainly supportive of alternative energy and environmentally friendly projects like this, like ours. So let's hope that there's money there for us and that we can secure that.
If we work for it, we got a lot of folks here that are Chuck is involved, as am I, with the sewer working group, and every one of us has a stake in this at some level or other, and look forward to working with all of us to finally get this, a little closer to the finish line. I'd like to see it in my lifetime.
Yeah, me too.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Glavy. Thank you,
Thanks.
James, for joining us tonight. And as Chuck will certainly follow up with you
Okay, thanks, Chuck.
about
Talk to you
the
soon.
EDC. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
So next on the agenda, we have a discussion with Nathan Long and A10 Associates. Mr. Ansaldi?
Yep, just promoting them right now to panelists.
Okay.
Is Nate?
You guys hear me?
We can. How are you?
Great.
Good.
See Jessica Paco or Danny McNamara. Do you see either of them, Anthony?
We're here. Can you
Okay.
hear
They're
us?
both together. Okay, under A10
We're here
Associates.
together. Hi, guys.
Hi,
All right,
how are
terrific.
you?
Good.
So,
How are you
this-
guys?
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. And I think this springs off of what Paul was just talking about a minute ago perfectly. So with the rezoning, the potential rezoning going on by the train station, everybody knows about that by now. As that was going on, our family decided to, so we own obviously we own the piece of property that's directly adjacent to the train station, which is a big chunk of it is a large portion of what's looking to be rezoned. So while all this talk has been going on, we decided to hire A10 Associates to look into ways that this potential project and then also the town could benefit from state and federal programs. So it's exactly what Paul was just talking about. we gave them a list that we thought were the town's wishes, or some of the town's wishes, and they included Foster Street improvements. A big one was wastewater treatment, sewer, other infrastructure things. Open space preservation was something we mentioned. Senior affordability for the project. Money towards an offsite senior center was something we mentioned, and then workforce housing as well. Those were the things that they've been working on, and with big ones being money that could go towards immediate Foster Street improvements and sewer in the area. So they're probably tied together, and I know that they have a lot of connections on the federal level, and that's probably includes Strahan's office as well, or Trahan's office as well. So with that said, I'm going to introduce Jessica Taco and Danny McNamara from A10. They're going to go over some of the stuff that they have researched and they've investigated, and they can talk about ways that they think the town may benefit, and then they'll look to you guys for guidance and direction on how you would like to use them as a board going forward, because they have a lot of experience in this area.
Great. Thank you, Nate.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Taco. I'm the CEO and founder of A10 Associates. We're a woman-owned lobbying firm, and we are based in Boston, but we also have offices in Washington, D.C. and Indiana. And my business partner here is Danny McNamara, and he is a partner here and also our general counsel. And we have been doing this type of work for several years in Mass. We've worked on behalf of clients, which are typically businesses, in Lawrence, Mass, Everett, Massachusetts, Malden, Brockton, Easton, and throughout Medford, East Boston, and even done some work with the city of Boston. And then we've gone out into Western Mass and worked with the town of Worcester. We've worked with Situate as well. And we have really enjoyed working with the Longs. I'm sure several of you have known them for many years. They proactively reached out to us to help them from the beginning, which we thought was really nice, because usually clients pull us in when something goes wrong. So we were really excited that we got to do something from the start and proactively try to help your town. Our goal is to try to be a resource to the Longs, and also to you all in any way we can, so that the Longs can hopefully have a successful project and be able to bring some special housing needs to be met at the location on Foster Street. What we've learned from the state is that this is the last undeveloped piece of property along a T station. So it's a very high priority to see something nice go there that would align with the state and the administration's transportation goals, to try to get more housing and more commuters, especially after COVID, based out on the train stations. So we know it's a big priority. We obviously cannot speak on your behalf without some sort of conversation with you. So we've not been doing that. Do not worry. But we have poked around, and we do, without mentioning you or speaking on your behalf, we've got quite a list of programs that we know that if you were to have this project come to town, you would be able to qualify for, that would kind of hit your wish list. So we were really excited hearing the conversation earlier about your interest in marketing yourselves, in economic development, and revitalizing the community after COVID. And we see that to be a really good synergy with this project. I was just going to lay out some of the opportunities that we see. What we'd really like as a next step would be if we could, I know we were able to chat with Maureen. We'd love to chat, I think it's with Anthony, and be able to get a wish list from you all of what it is that the town is really looking for officially. We've had a lot of conversations with folks, but we don't 100% know everything that you're looking for, but that helps us look for state and federal funding. So that's one next step we'd like to ask for. And then the other next step would be to be able to actually ask about things and let folks know that we're working with the Longs in the town. But we've been very careful about that out of respect for y'all. So a few programs that I'm sure you're already aware of, but I'd like to touch on them. Because this project was permitted as a 40R, it does allow for some special things, particularly with housing. So obviously there's opportunity for housing for folks of all types of economic levels. We've had a lot of discussion about low-income housing and the percentages that you need for affordable housing. Obviously, there are state and federal programs for that. There are low-income housing tax credits and credits that can be given to the project so that more low-income families can be there. Workforce housing is another thing that we have not discussed as much because it's not part of 40R, but that is another thing that we're seeing with the state of Mass that we know would be possible for you guys to apply for. Also, senior housing support. So as a town, if you are looking for there to be funding from the state to the town for senior housing, maybe I know I looked through your town meetings a long time ago, there was a push for a senior center. By putting some special senior housing in the town on our project, that would open you up for funding for a senior center and other resources for seniors. It doesn't have to be on this project, but I think that's very valuable. We've also heard that there's concerns in the community about development when there used to be a lot of farms and more rural land. There is an APR program that the state has that will help benefit those that don't sell or develop their land. So by developing this, we could go for some credits for folks to keep other areas of the town undeveloped, if that's something that at least we've heard you are interested in. We've heard a lot about Foster Street. Obviously, MassWorks grants are the first that come to mind. Those are due June 2nd, so it might be really hard to pull that together in time. But there are also possibilities through Massachusetts DOT, especially the new $50 million fund that just was announced with the last budget session. And then we'd really like to dig into the sewage situation. This project is obviously far away from downtown, and you would want to do your sewer downtown first and then hope the project could run some lines. But by creating this economic development opportunity at a state level, MassWorks would be something you could look at. Also, the Mass EPA has many project programs that you could apply for. On the federal, we've worked a lot with Trahan's office. Obviously, for the city of Lawrence, they're amazing. But on the federal side, you've got a lot of incentives that you could look at. And all of these have to go to the town, not to the developer. So Economic Development Administration grants, which we've just helped the city of Lawrence on this, that can be funding for your public works. It can also be funding for anything like the roads, anything that you're doing around infrastructure. So what you're looking for with Foster Street, that money goes directly to you to do as you want with it around the project. Build grants as well for transportation. And you have a very good argument that you can make because you're part of that national objective to strengthen communities and transportation. And then there are dozens of federal programs for wastewater, stormwater, and for sewage that you could look at that are in waste disposal as well, that are grants for towns that are your size. You're in a very special size area, that was size of your population that has 5 or 6 special different awards you could go after just for your public works at a federal level, which would be very positive because now you've got a Democratic president and you've got the Mass delegation that would weigh in on your behalf. But you just need that economic development program through a project like this to kind of spark the interest. And one of the things that we find that is really nice about this is that a lot of these federal programs are looking for there to be some sort of a match to show that the project is viable. So by having, taking something like this investment in this project, you can show the federal government that there is some skin in the game, from the Longs or whoever develops it with them, that would help you be very competitive to pursue federal funding. Also earmarks, which Emily probably talked to you about, have returned. They've been gone for almost 15 years, but as a town, you can apply for specific earmarks within the bill that she mentioned, to have checks written directly to you, which is very different from before when you had to wait until a budget came out and then apply through the federal government. The last thing I just want to mention is the walking trails. We know that's really important for this site. So there are state and federal grants. Through the state, you're looking at park service, as well as environmental. And then from the federal, there's a number of grants through the USDA. So there's a lot. And I think our goal or our hope would be if we could sit down with folks, get your list of priorities, see what's been done to date, what's been studied, what you already have a study for, and then try to put together a really nice package of what can be done and how this project can benefit the city beyond providing housing that is needed for special communities.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that information, Jessica. Nate was wonderful to follow up with me and reach out to me and just tell me about your organization. And I appreciate your interest in Littleton and wanting to help not only the Long family, but looking beyond that and seeing what's really going on here in Littleton. We have a lot going on, as you pointed out, and to have your forethought and insight into other resources that are available to help us with some of these initiatives is really helpful. So I appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and that's why I wanted to bring you before the board to have that discussion, specifically about maybe getting the board's blessing to work with Maren, to work with Mr. Ansaldi, to speak freely about the town of Littleton and some of the initiatives that we have going forward here. But I wanted to get the board's input and thoughts on that clearly before we make any decisions. So I see that Mr. Glavy's unmuted himself, so I'm going to start with him.
Well, I am delighted that A10 Associates are working with Nate Long and the Long family, and love the project. So I'm supportive, but anytime that any entities out approaching government agencies in some capacity on behalf of the town, we need to kind of keep that in close reach, because of the very real consideration that they keep track of what's your priority and what's not your priority. So if we are muddying the waters in any respect, we don't want to do that. So anything that's done on our name needs to be in a clear channel back to Anthony, to the board, in whatever form, so that we are, we aren't sending mixed messages to state or federal agencies as to what the town's priorities are. All that being said, I didn't want to be a downer at all. It's all good. We just got to make sure we're not stepping on our own toes.
Thank you for that feedback. And that's 100% of our goal, is to work with you guys. That's why, it's important that we have a list of your priorities, and any conversation that we have that, Anthony thinks or would like to be a part of when we're talking about the priorities and the funding projects, then we're more than happy to have him on those calls or in those meetings with us as well. I mean, the Long family talks a lot about this as working in tandem with the town on this project. And that's why, and that's kind of the role we see ourselves, right? I mean, we're here to help the project move forward, but also benefit the town.
And
Excellent.
I really love that you said that, because since the beginning of my career doing this, there's been times where the town has not your town, but other towns haven't been aligned. And the state and the federal government will check back and they'll ask the town, is this really what you want? And does everyone want it? And we've watched over the years, maybe one city councilor doesn't want it, but another does. And that type of thing can be really messy, and it just hurts the town and the project. So Yes, we are really happy that you said that, and we love everything to be, unanimous, and also just at the direction of you folks. And like Danny said, to cover everything, however we move forward, we'd want somebody from the town to be in those conversations and such, just to protect also ourselves, to make sure we don't make a mistake or something like that.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, there's no worse feeling than having to say thank you for a $10,000 check, which cost you a $100,000 check somewhere else.
True. Mr. Nordhaus?
Thank you. I think we want all of those things you listed. But actually, to the board, I do think we should have a conversation about priorities. That list was incredibly impressive, and so many of them align with the things we've been discussing with the station area and the other boards in town. But as Mr. Glavy, mentioned, there's an opportunity cost to everything. So I want to make sure we're deliberate about prioritizing what we would like to go after. I'm not sure what the best forum for that is, but I do think it deserves some attention and time.
Okay. Excellent.
And I do want everything. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not a joke.
Mr. Knox, did you have any comments?
It's just, I want to echo what Mr. Nordhaus just said and what Paul has said also. We just don't want to be having two agencies going out in two different directions and funds not being used in the proper way. So we want to make sure we coincide our efforts to get things done. And I think the board does have to sit down and go over this topic so we can finalize what we really want to be asking for.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeCoste?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Right along with all of you, but the one thing that Jessica mentioned was that with the current administration, there's I guess a higher likelihood that we're going to potentially receive additional funds because our delegation will have the ear of the president and the administration. So echo again what everybody said, but what Paul said, we want to make sure that those priorities are straight, because whether it's that $10,000 check or $100,000 check or whatever, if oftentimes communities receive funds for a project that the legislators feel is what we wanted, and in fact, we'd rather focus all of our efforts on something different, and basically we get put to the bottom of the pile after we get some funds for a project that wasn't necessarily our number 1, 2, or 3 priority. So I think that's what all of us are saying. But I certainly think that, you look at Kelly's Corner. Jessica was mentioning the mass work grants. I think she was referencing the one stop program. Kelly's Corner has been in the works since I think 2007 over in Acton, and that's something that they've kind of chipped away at and had a plan and a process and a lot of design that involved town planners and economic development committees and a lot of the businesses in the community. And I think we have to be very deliberate about, we've put the form-based code in place for the common area, and with the station area, we've had a lot of sessions and meetings and opportunities for folks to give us some input. And again, we're tickled that the Longs were at the table, because it's very much at a table. We're having conversations, and it's very open. So I very much appreciate that, and I just want to kind of manage expectations a little bit. That I'm sure that Jessica and her team are rock stars, but it's going to be one bite at a time. We're gonna have to follow this process. I guess, Paul, to use Emily's statement, we're gonna have to build the plane as we're flying it. So I'm excited. This is great to be engaged at this point in the game. As Jessica mentioned, oftentimes she's probably coming in and putting out fires, but we're trying to avoid fires and make sure we're doing things the right way with as many resources as we can get to try to do the best for the most.
All right. Thank you, Mr. DeCoste. So Jessica gave a very thorough list of opportunities that are available at the state and federal level that do coincide with some projects that have been discussed by this board and other boards for the town. So we can do this 2 ways. We can put this on the agenda for our next meeting on April 12th, or we could submit what our priorities we feel, maybe through Mr. Ansaldi, if we didn't want to wait until the 12th to have this discussion and circle back with A10 Associates. So what does the board think is the best way to move forward?
Could I suggest we do both, that we all submit a list and we have a brief discussion on the 12th?
Mhm.
That way, maybe we can get through it more quickly during the meeting.
Okay. That sounds fine to me.
With the overarching theme of the priorities and the goals that we had already sat down and set.
Yeah, that was going to be my only addition too. Yeah, amen. We've done this exercise, maybe not in this context, but we've done this.
Right. Yep. Excellent. All right, great. How does that sound, Jessica? Does that work?
Yeah, that's perfect. And the Longs have our contact information. So you all can send us anything, reach out to us through Nathan and anytime and any way that you guys want. And we're here. And we do just one town at a time. So you guys are the only town and the only project that we're working on this year in Massachusetts, just so you know kind of our priority level. And that's so that we're not making a lot of asks on behalf of multiple different places. So we're very focused on this, and we've loved hearing all your meetings and things. And I'm originally from Indiana. I wish I could move my family to Littleton because it seems like a really nice place.
That's really sweet. Thank you so much.
And Cindy, if I could just say, or Madam Chair, sorry, if I could just say that when you guys do discuss these things, and it might be more for Joe and Anthony who have the experience working with MassWorks, or maybe it's Paul as well, you guys can also let us know how much or how little help or assistance you would want from us or A10 Associates as well. You know, there could be some areas where you don't want us to go anywhere near, and there could be other areas where you want A10 to take it and run with it too. So we're just offering the help. If you came back and said we're going to handle it all ourselves, no problem. But we have this resource that at our disposal, and because helping the town will help the project, they're willing to work with the town as well. So I just want to make it clear that we're not pushing A10 on anybody. It's just another option for you guys to use if you want to try and pursue some different ways to get funding.
Excellent. Thank you, Nate. Really appreciate that. Another resource for the town. So that's what we'll do. So the board, we're going to send our thoughts to Mr. Ansaldi, and then we're going to put this on our agenda for our next meeting on April 12th. And we'll follow up with you and Jessica.
Sounds great.
Nate,
And
it's
I
great
will
seeing you.
forward. Hey, Joe, you too. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time. And
Great.
I'll forward, I guess, Anthony, if you want, I can email you and I'll copy Jessica on it so that, if there's any time that I don't get back and you need some answers or something like that, you can go directly to her.
Great. Thanks, Nate.
All right, great.
Yep.
Thanks again. Thanks, Nate. Good night,
Thanks,
Jessica.
guys.
Good night, Danny. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda, we have Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza, LLC, change of officer and beneficial interest. Do we have Attorney Devlin
Devlin, let's see.
on the call?
Joe, do you see anything? Is there anybody
No.
there's somebody from Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza. Can you just raise your hand so we know?
Ian Baines or Patrick Renna?
No, they're the new
License holders?
offices. Yeah, the offices. So, Madam Chair, what we have here is the Attorney Devlin has submitted an application to change the offices for Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza. They've actually have done this before.
Mhm.
The new offices are Ian Baines and Patrick Renna. We have the complete package. In your package, there's the complete application as well as an email from the police chief who doesn't have any issues. Not sure if you want to move on this tonight. It is pretty standard. I'm not sure what happened to them. Maybe they got tied up or something, Attorney Devlin, but it's just
Okay.
a change the beneficiaries.
Okay. What is the favor of the board?
if the chief looked into it and we don't have any red flags, I think it's okay for us to move forward. It would be nice to have the applicant in front of us, but
It's
I don't
pretty
have a
standard.
problem
It's pretty
moving forward.
straightforward, right?
It is kind of
Just
a
a
rubber
pr-
stamp.
It has got the proper review from the police chief, and it's administrative in nature, and I have a motion ready, Madam Chair, if you're ready
Perfect.
for it.
Sure.
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, to approve the application of Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza of Littleton LLC, DBA Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza, to change its officers and to notify the Alcohol Beverages Control Commission.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Glavy,
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste,
Dr. Coast is aye.
and Cindy Napoli is aye, and the motion is approved as written. Excellent, thank you. So next we are on to public input and members' updates. Do we have anyone for public input, Mr. Layden?
Madam Chair, currently no one has a hand raised.
Okay. So we'll go on to member updates. We'll start with Mr. Knox,
I'm all set right now. Thank you.
Mr. Glavy,
I'm all set too.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Sorry, mute. Mr. Layden and I attended the COA meeting, the COA Vision Subcommittee meeting this afternoon, and we were discussing the senior center, and Mr. Rombacher, who has obviously some substantial experience in building municipal buildings as a trustee, was not alarmed, but concerned at the timeline and would like to start the process of getting together a group to discuss, some of the questions that are going to come up. He reiterated how long it took to get the library design process complete. And given that town meeting is coming up, he wanted to get started. So I just thought I would bring it up with this group, that perhaps next week we could put on the agenda some time to discuss how that group might be organized. Is it a committee or a working group? I think they could consolidate a lot of information from the space needs, from some of the surveys. There doesn't necessarily need to be anything that is related to funding. But in deference to him, I think it's probably wise to listen to him and get started as soon as possible.
okay, thank you. We definitely need to get an update from LLB. I know we were looking at some funding, where we were at with available funding, Mr. Ansaldi, if I'm not mistaken, and we were waiting just to hear back from them and figure out the best course to move forward. There has been some discussion about having a committee or having a board or really a group to work on this project going forward, and what that group would look like. Historically, we've had mixed results with working groups and committees and things of this nature, especially when it comes to the space needs project. So I think this is something that we should schedule for our next board meeting, and Mr. Ansaldi, if we could, to have a more in-depth conversation to Mr. Nordhaus's point and figure out exactly where we're at, what our expectation is for town meeting, and what plan, how do we want to handle this project moving forward.
Okay, will do, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Mr. DeCoste?
Sure. Just to kind of piggyback on what you just said about I know it's going to come up at the next meeting, but we pretty much have had a working group that's been focused on this and working on this with LLB and with the town administrator's office and with Ashley and her team. But we can discuss that more at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, occurs to me as a strong and consistent supporter of the library project. The library project was kept on track, I think, in large measure because it was held accountable by the elected library commissioners. We did not have such a group for that, and it was a very successful process. Here we have a similar arrangement. We know who's ultimately responsible: selectmen, council on aging, and ultimately a building committee. But yeah, I'm open to discussion on it, but it strikes me, having seen that model employed both ways, the most successful model has been the model where we didn't have a special committee, which had to go back to all the constituent committees to actually get anywhere.
Right, right. Yeah, so all good points. So we'll talk about this again on the 12th, because we will have more information at that point, Mr. Ansaldi, from LLB. We should have what we're waiting for from them.
Yeah, I know Joe has requested the final deliverables, and we're still waiting for that. But we'll put another call into them to make sure that they put that on the fast track.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Glavy, did I ask you about member updates?
Oh,
I forget
you
if I
did.
called
Oh,
on
yeah,
you.
yeah. I already,
I'm
I grabbed my time. I'm all
Yeah,
set.
all right, all right.
I'll
I didn't want to,
I'll continue with mine if I may, Madam Chair.
sure.
All right. I want to give a shout out to the Friends of the Council on Aging. They've been doing on Wednesdays and Fridays. They've been doing, actually, Mr. Glavy put me onto this. They've been doing a spring flower delivery. So Friends Flowers, I think they call it. Sharon Corbin and Barbara McRae kind of leading the charge. And I've had the privilege of being one of the delivery folks, delivering them to seniors. And there's no, it's literally just, they go through a list of streets. And if you meet the criteria of being a senior citizen, you get flowers delivered to your door, and with a nice little note on them. Some of them are in teacups, and they're all made by the Friends. And it was great for me personally, selfishly, but it was great for them to see somebody cared for them and was just bringing them a little bit of sunshine. And so I just want to give them a shout out. And like I said, I had the privilege of being on the delivery list now, so I'm one of the FTD guys. The other thing, just kind of piggybacking on a lot of, I'm glad Jim Kennedy was on the call, and actually even A10, they spoke a lot about economic development and how it works so closely with our planning and moving the town forward. I've been doing, as part of the Economic Development Committee, we've been reaching out to a lot of the business owners and to the business community. I've specifically spoken with Tim and Dan O'Neill up at O'Neill Cinema. They're hanging on by a thread. I mean, it's just, I don't know how these businesses, restaurants, just retail establishments are staying open, as well as other. We see the retail ones, but there's a number of other independent and privately owned businesses that are potentially able to go after some of the CDBG grants, but we haven't had a whole lot of traction on that. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is trying to gain some input from these folks and let them know what's available to them. But even with a lot of the banks have the loans available, in the MGCC, which is the Mass Growth Capital Corp. O'Neill Cinemas has actually applied for Mass Growth Capital Corp for the CARES funding, and they haven't heard back from the state since November. So I'm trying to help navigate them through that. So I'm just going to put a call out to Anthony or anybody out there that knows how to navigate through MGCC. I have reached out to our legislators and asked them if they can help us as well. So the struggle is real for these businesses. So one of the things I'd like to try to do is even just putting up the lawn signs are popping up right now. It's campaign season, but I know that we've all been very active in going to the local communities and shopping local. And I think we need to kind of formalize something, whether it comes from the EDC or from the select board, to try to drive people to the local businesses, let people know that O'Neill Cinema is going to be opening and when they're going to be opening, and things like that. I think there's some things we can do. Maybe even it's Anthony, I don't know if this is something we could do or not, or if the board even wants to do it, but maybe putting like shop local or eat local on the highway letter signs, the road signs, just whatever we can do to try to help businesses stay afloat, similar to when we waived the fees for licensing and whatnot. This is going to have a pretty significant impact on us when it comes to abatements, and we've talked about that relative to our budgets, and we need to start preparing for that, and whatever we can do to try to at least give a little bit of a shot in the arm to the businesses in the community. That'll help them, but ultimately it'll help us, because the abatements won't have to be as great if their businesses rebound, or if they're able to use these different grants to sustain their businesses. They're not going to be looking for as much in abatement. One of the other things, I did reach out to some other communities, and I'd like to try to discuss, not necessarily now, but whether it's for this pandemic or to prepare for the future, there must be some opportunity for us to put some funds aside for grant opportunities within our own community from small businesses. So I just want to kind of put that out there, float the idea, and see if that might be something we can discuss further. Again, these are all things that are kind of stemming from economic development and having some of those conversations with that team that I respect those folks and appreciate them hanging in there. But I just wanted to kind of float all those ideas out there and see if there's any input or any thoughts or what the palette is of the board for any of those ideas.
Great, thank you. I like the Shop Local for Littleton campaign. I think it's a great idea, especially now that the warm weather is coming and people are getting vaccinated. I think people are more hopeful. They're going out more. And it would be great, especially when outdoor seating opens up. I know up at Salute, Deb is really looking forward to getting her outdoor patio opened. And then the businesses too on the Common Convenience and Pub on the Common and those local businesses too. So if we could, I think it's a great idea to try to come up with some campaign, Chuck, to see what they're looking for. How can we help them?
Right.
Get the word out, and just reminding residents that it is important to support our local businesses and people that we do have here in our community. We don't, our commercial base is relatively small compared to surrounding communities. We're working on that with initiatives like the sewer project, but we need to support who is here and who has been loyal to our community and who relies on us. So I think it's a great idea to do something like that.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea.
If the rest of the board's okay with it, I will have that conversation with Jim when I speak to him either tonight or tomorrow, and see if there's some way that we can make that happen. Again, I don't know if the letter boards, if we can do something like that where I think it's a community thing. I don't think there's any problem with it. I don't think we're specifically saying, shop at XYZ.
Yeah, right.
So it's not a private benefit.
Yeah, just shop local, just reminding people. I think Acton has signs out. They do like the sandwich boards at certain areas, just to remind people to shop local. So I think the businesses would appreciate something like that.
Yeah.
However we do it, however you work it out.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. So I had just one update. The Littleton Community Farm has reached out to me. They wanted to make the residents aware that they changed up their CSA program to a sliding scale to allow for greater participation from families, especially those struggling during the time of COVID, and people with who have been financially impacted due to the pandemic. So people can pay as much or as little as they want for a CSA share. People on public support can pay as little as $0 for a CSA share. So they're Littleton, they're just trying to get the word out to the residents about this program to help feed the community. There's and I didn't write down the statistics, but there's so many children in our community who are struggling with food. They have food insecurity is the term that they use for it. So really, this is an important program. We've got this great resource here in Littleton. So if people want more information about this, they can go to littletoncommunityfarm.org or admin at littletoncommunityfarm.org to learn more about the CSA share. There's also a fundraiser coming up at the Orange Kitchen in Acton. And I will try to get the specific dates and link to that fundraiser and get that shared out on social media too. I think that's a really great venue. I don't know if anybody's ever been there before.
Is it the Orange Door?
Orange Door. Okay. Yep, exactly. Thank you, Matthew. That's a great facility. So I'll get some information out on social media about that too, just in case any residents are interested in attending that. That's coming up in a couple weeks. And that is all I had to share for member updates. So we are on to now the Sustainability Committee to hear an update from that group. Are they on the call, Mr. Ansaldi?
Yes, one second. We're going to let Renato in.
So just so the board knows, I wanted to invite the Sustainability Committee to our meeting. This committee is a group of rock stars. I don't know if you've read any of their meeting minutes or seen their agendas, but they're doing some amazing work. They've been very, very active, which I think is just great. It's what we hope for when we appoint people to these committees, to see them active and involved and coming up with ideas. So I wanted to invite them to our meeting just so that we can find out what we can do to help them as a board and to get an update from them. So I'm glad that they were able to join us tonight.
One second. Just keep.
You want me to sing while you're bringing them in?
No, it's
Come
No,
on, Matthew.
no.
Renato.
Actually, if you mute yourself, you can sing as much as you, there you go. Perfect.
One of the challenges is that when they raise their hand, like I've been hovering to let them in, and then when they
And then
raise
they
their
bounce.
hand, they get to the top of the list. So,
And then you try to,
I-
yeah.
yep, okay,
I got Renato.
got
Hold
her
on.
now.
I can't wait till we're back in 103. I'm just saying.
All right, thank you. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Renato.
Hi, thank you for having me and Littleton Sustainability Committee. Uh, Thank you for inviting us. I'll just share a small presentation that I have. So those are the members today and Littleton Sustainability Committee. So Brian Baluconis, Corinne Gamache, Margaret Gibbs, Erin Healy, Donald McKeever, Heidi Montanari, me, Renata Nakagomi, Sarah Rambacher, and Megan Rank. So I'm going to show our purpose at what is in our website. So the purpose of Little Sustainability Committee is to help in the development and implementation of Littleton's sustainability vision, mission, and related goals. The LLC will encourage development of a culture of sustainability. So this is nowadays our goal, that how it's stated in our website. So what did we accomplish in the past years? We did the Littleton Boxborough Solar Initiative. We have an annual event, Zero Waste Day, where we collect different types of things to recycle or to vendors that utilize that or recycle those things. It's an annual event since 2015. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we didn't have last year, and I don't think we'll hold that this year either. We also supported the Repair Cafe. It was organized by Anne Grace and some volunteers. We had two events, several events in 2017, 2018. Important thing that we conclude the resilience workshops and reporting, which qualified Littleton for the Massachusetts MVP program, the Massachusetts Vulnerability Program. So we got 15,000 grant award to our town for MVP, municipal vulnerability mitigation in 2017. And also allowed us to have the $760,000 award to Littleton for conservation land purchase in 2020. Also, we have volunteering for Earth Day. Some of our members have volunteered under Mr. Kaldenberg, who organizes the Earth Day trash collection in the town. So this is the important thing, is our challenges. So we were looking into our own purpose and goals. So we are trying to figure out what's our role here in town. Also, we are also discussing the promotion and implementation of solar panels in the community buildings. We are trying to organize joint sustainability actions and events with neighboring towns. We are preparing educational workshops regarding recycling. We are also helping transfer station to prepare for the next RFP to contract vendors. And we are also investigating how we can have a fixed sustainability director coordinator position to gather grants for the town. As you can see, and I was happy to hear from A10 and also from members of the select board that we should be going after the grants that are out there. And now that we have a new federal organization, so we will probably have a lot of grants available, grants and awards available out there for sustainability. And sustainability is not only sustainability committee. Actually, those grants can touch everything, like from the Green Communities program, for Complete Streets program for the bicycle and walking committee, and also the MVP program. So there's a lot. There's a lot of, or there will be a lot of grants out there, and we could benefit from them if we have a person that could go after those grants that are out there. So one of the things that select board asked is how you guys can help us. So I think first thing is related to our goals and our purpose. Maybe if we could engage more with each other, and we should be acting more like a true advisory board. So I'm not sure if you guys have like issues or questions. We have a lot of members that are willing to help to do research or to create a scientific base arguments for anything that you would want to know. Also, we would like to work with the committee or select board to find grant money to hire sustainability director coordinator, or to find a way to sponsor or to finance this position. So as you can see, by only doing those workshops and training, we were able to get like the $15,000 grant and then $760,000 grant awards for land. So maybe if we have someone that's actively going after those grants and those awards, we could have more money to the town to finance or to sponsor different types of projects. Again, it's not a sustainability committee projects, but other boards projects also. And also, we would like to ask help of backing up and sponsoring some our studies related to solar panels promotion for community buildings, support our ongoing zero waste efforts with Littleton High School, and also some help with the transfer station assessment for future RFPs. So I will ask, is Brian Baluconis can I?
Yes.
So he's
Can you
going
hear
to
me?
talk about, yeah, I can hear you, Brian.
Okay.
So Brian was going to talk about the transfer station project that we are doing.
Hey, Brian.
Hi. Again, one of the things that I think our committee is just trying to get a better understanding sometimes is how we should be interacting and whether we should be supporting the town on projects or kind of running our own agenda. So Cindy had come to our meeting and asked us to get a little bit more involved with some of the projects that are going on in the town. And one of the things that was discussed was the transfer station. So right I'm retired. I had used to work at Raytheon Company for 33 years. I was a solid waste process owner for our business division, and I managed the solid waste and recycling and zero waste programs for our business across the country. And we were very successful. We integrated some resource management techniques for our RFPs, and we received a lot of recognition from the DEP, from the EPA, Mass Recycle, and lastly, through the GBCI, the Green Building Certification, Inc. They're the same organization that runs the LEED programs. They also have a program that's referred to as TRUE, which is the Total Resource Use and Efficiency Program. It basically is a program to get certified as zero waste. So in Massachusetts, we actually, I had Raytheon, was able to get Raytheon certified as the first 6 different facilities in the state to be certified as zero waste, which was no small task. So anyway, I do have a lot of experience in the solid waste end. And as part of that, I had provided some metrics, an Excel metric sheet to Chris Stoddard to basically to try to get some more information. We actually did receive some metrics from Chris, and the metrics were good, but they weren't as complete as I would have liked to see them. In particular, being a very metrics-driven company where I was from, we really correlated everything back to the dollar. And although in town, we know what's going on from the standpoint of a diversion, but we can't really put a cost number on each of the commodities, each of the resources that are managed in the town for recycling and reuse. So part of the spreadsheet I was trying to get from Chris was to try to expand on that. And if we are able to fully get a better understanding of the cost associated with running the facility, our hope is to be able to provide some support and some additional ideas. And in particular, there's an RFP coming up that Chris mentioned later this year. And being someone who put together our RFPs for our company, I think I could provide a lot of support for that process. And in how I look at it is, though, without the proper metrics, it's really hard to assess how effective the facility is running. And that's really what I'm trying to do right now from Chris, who is, I guess, Ashley Pinnard, the business manager, is out on maternity leave now, my understanding, and she will be the one that Chris is going to utilize to help fill in some of the missing numbers, so to speak, on the metrics. And I think after that, we'll have a better understanding of how the cost structure is working for the transfer facility. And as a result, hopefully we can provide some input, with some operational and cost efficiencies in the future. So that's pretty much where I'm coming in, at least on the transfer station component of this.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I'll jump in, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Thank you, all of you, for what you do. And Brian, you are exactly the kind of individual when like on economic development. James had mentioned there's some folks that he'd like to introduce to the economic development committee because they know how to do social media and marketing and that kind of thing. And certainly your skill set and your expertise we're lucky to have you, and thank you. Thank you everybody that volunteers, but when there's such a great fit, we certainly benefit from it, and we do appreciate your time and effort. One of the things that I know that in the past we've talked about, I know Valerie Finnety's done a whole bunch of stuff with the green team down at the middle school, and some folks have done some stuff up at the high school. I know that Senator Eldridge had done in Acton Boxborough had done a number of zero waste projects, one of which was a composting bin using worms, and I happened to be involved in that project with the sustainability person that was the staff person at AB Regional. Those are certainly some things that we could introduce you guys to some of the staff and some of the folks that are leading those clubs and that kind of thing once we kind of get back to some sense of normal. But if we have any resources, we can tap into our legislators to try to help you in those areas. That's where some of the collaboration that I think Renato or maybe Brian, you spoke of at the beginning of your presentation. So if we can help you to make those connections, that certainly would benefit all of us. Thank you.
No, thank you. We do have, being in the field for so long, I do have a lot of contacts out there, both from a federal and state standpoint, and also a lot of businesses. So, at this point, I feel that there's going to be some opportunity in the future for look at some improvements. And you mentioned composting. I started the composting program across Raytheon Company, and so it can happen anywhere. And I'm sure we can look at, again, those opportunities within the town.
Yeah, for sure.
Great, thank you. Mr. Glavy, did you want to say something?
Just briefly, thank you, Madam Chair, for getting the Sustainability Committee on our agenda. I'm not surprised, having worked with Renato on the Master Plan Committee, that he is leading a effective group at advancing these causes. And to a point that he raised earlier, if the Sustainability Committee wants to get issues before us and have input, then by all means, just come forward. Don't wait for an invitation. We are sometimes deficient in that regard, only because we have our interests spread in a lot of different directions, and we have a lot of different advisory groups. We benefit from them all, but we benefit from them best when they step forward and say, "Hey, we've got something we'd like to talk with you about." So please do that.
Great, thank you, Mr. Glavy. Mr. Knox, did you have something you wanted to add or not?
No, I just want to congratulate that committee on all the hard work they're putting in and how this helping our town, service our town in a number of areas. They just want to thank you for all the efforts that you're putting in.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, we've had this discussion the past few budget cycles about the boards and committees that we appoint that we don't fund. We don't provide any funding for. And I believe that this might be another one that we've kind of, it's kind of fallen by the wayside by giving them the financial resources that they need to be effective, whatever that amount may be. I agree, very, very supportive of sustainability coordinator, especially in light of the town administrator and town manager event that was just that annual event that we attended this past month, last month, I believe it was, held by the Western Business Association. When you look at surrounding communities and what they've been able to accomplish, especially when they have some sustainability coordinator on board, it really makes a big difference in the community and what they can accomplish. And I know that we're reorganizing the building department right now, or the permitting department, And I don't know if there's been any more discussions. There was some discussions about incorporating a sustainability coordinator into that structure somehow. And I'd like to, even if it isn't in there now, maybe get a placeholder in that structure for a sustainability coordinator, just so that we don't lose sight of that, the need for that position, because I do agree with Renato and the other members of the sustainability committee that it's really important. So if we could, I just don't remember what that structure looks like, Mr. Ansaldi. So if maybe we could just make a note of that, Mr. Layden. I don't want to lose sight of that. And also if we could just follow up with Cheryl and see, I don't know that we offered or provided any funding to the sustainability committee this budget. I don't know if we have provided any funding last year. So if we haven't, I'd like to revisit that for next year, just to make sure that they have the resources they need. Renato, thank you. Again, I don't know if you heard me when I introduced the committee to the board, but your group is your rock stars. I read your agendas and your meeting minutes, and I'm really, really impressed at everything that you're doing. I'm really honestly appreciate. This is exactly what we hope for when we appoint these committees, who come before the board, that they want to be active and actually want to help and get something done. And this group's been really very, very impressive. So I want to thank you again for all your hard work, everybody, Brian, and I see Sarah's on the call as well. And I know Megan and all the other members. But to Paul's point, definitely feel free to come to us with anything that you feel is of interest, or if you have any questions or anything that you want to spearhead. Definitely be proactive in that regard. We welcome that, because to Paul's point, we do have a lot on our plate, and sometimes we're not as diligent as we should be with following up with the boards and committees that we appoint. So would certainly welcome to see your group at our meetings more often than not, and vice versa. We'll definitely make an effort as well to pop in when we can to your meetings. So we'll definitely keep discussions open about the sustainability coordinator. And, I think going forward, just let us know, let's just keep the dialogue going with what we can do. I'm just reading through the list of the things that you rattled off. So, just let us know specifically what you need from us, and we'll take another look at the sustainability coordinator position and just see where it stands in that permitting department reorg. And then also we'll follow up with our finance team about budget for this committee. Is there anything else, Renato?
Thank you very much for having us. And again, the sustainability director or coordinator position is not for sustainability committee. It's for the town to get grants for all committees or any project that's relevant to the town.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of areas. If you read the master plan, there's so many reports we have that talk about the sustainability component, especially the master plan. So, all right. And so the grant aspect of that as well, because we have had those conversations. So we need to revisit that. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're all set. So we are now on to the water department to get an update on PFAS. So the Watts and Drops community briefing had mentioned, had provided an update about PFAS. And so we have Nick Lawler and Corey Godfrey. Invited them to come to the meeting tonight if they could provide an update to the community about PFAS. Hi, Nick.
Thanks, Matt. How you doing?
Good.
Corey and I in the water department really appreciate having this opportunity. Through the select board, the Board of Health, LCTV, you guys have been instrumental in us getting that message out, and we really appreciate that. Chairman Pegasic couldn't make it tonight. We just want to send along a quick sorry. He said we came up last minute, but he typically likes to be on here as well. spreading the news. COVID kind of took or gave us a little distraction from PFAS. The water department hasn't stopped working on it since COVID hit. In fact, a lot of the things that we've been doing happened throughout COVID. The water department staff has been tremendous in their initiatives. The biggest one being that temporary solution that they've developed down Great Road, blending Beaverbrook wells with Spec Pond. And that allowed us to keep Spec Pond on at some capacity, which was needed throughout, definitely in the summer, throughout last year. Spec Pond is about 50% of our capacity in our water, so it's very important that we keep that well running whenever we can. So, to kind of recap, we found PFAS in the water. I think it was August of 2019. And that was through the diligence of Corey Godfrey and his team. We weren't required to test for PFAS yet, but we felt an obligation to the community to do it, especially since it was so close to our neighbors in air. Corey and his team found it, and they've dealt with it in a very swift manner. When we found it, we were able to take that well offline. And we never had to put it back on. We were lucky. We didn't have to do that. And by the time we put it back on, we were blending with Beaverbrook wells. So it stayed underneath that 20 parts per trillion. That's the target number that the DEP set. At the time, it wasn't even set, but there had been communications that they were going to set it at that level. So it's been almost 2 years. And wells get worn as you're running them. There's lots of minerals in the ground. As you suck them in through the wells and through the mechanical infrastructure, they need to be cleaned. Our wells are cleaned once to twice a year as routine maintenance. And we've been able to do that throughout the winter for Wickham Ave wells that are on, for Spec Pond, and now it's time for Beaverbrook. So we sent out the communication. I believe it hit last week or the week before. And it caused quite a little bit of a panic in town, and we get it, and we appreciate that people are concerned and obviously care about the water supply. That was a proactive mailing put out by our board. They wanted to make sure that we continue to communicate with the community with PFAS. It is likely that we never have to turn Spectacle Pond on during this maintenance. But if we do, we want the community to be prepared for that. So that's why that mailer went out. The well is due to be cleaned April 8th on Thursday. It could take 2 weeks to clean that, to rehab that well. They got to pull equipment out of the ground and look at it and clean it. And it's 3 wells there, so it's quite a process. It could take a month, depending on what they find. We're hoping for 2 weeks. In that 2 weeks, we might not have to run Spectacle Pond. If we run Spectacle Pond, it might be under 20. That number's been trending all around 20 since we found it. So there's no saying that it will be above the 20 parts per trillion. But again, we wanted to communicate with the public that this event was happening, and it could lead to an exceedance on that 20 parts per trillion for PFAS. We have a webpage dedicated to this issue. I strongly suggest people visit it. There's a way to sign up for notifications. So if we change something or add something to the website, you will be emailed right away that something's changed. If we have to turn Spectacle Pond on, we will update that website that it's been turned on, and everybody that's signed up for an alert or for that or on that page will get an alert through their email. So that's one way to kind of stay up to speed with what's going on in Spectacle Pond. We have the board implemented a couple of initiatives when we found PFAS. One of them was a bottled water credit for our customers, which has actually been applauded by the state. The DEP has been urging other communities to do similar type initiatives with this issue. Before, what people were doing, they had all sorts of programs that allowed residents to set up bottle filling stations and very staff intensive ways to solve this problem. And our board was very creative, and they were able to do it in a way that didn't impact staff, but gave the residents of Littleton that were in the sensitive subgroup. That's the other thing. The sensitive subgroup is very important to mention. PFAS is thought to be harmful over long periods of time to pregnant mothers, nursing mothers, and toddlers under the age of 1. And recently, DEP and EPA have added immune compromised individuals as well to that list. So those are the people that should be aware of the situation that's going on in Littleton. And I wanted Corey on as well, because obviously whenever you have an event like this, it kind of spurs people to talk about and be concerned about all sorts of contaminants that might be in the water supply. And Corey has managed our groundwater monitoring program since he's been here. And I thought it'd be helpful for the public to hear from him on all the things that we do in the community to protect our water supply. So I don't know, Corey, if you want to start going.
Yeah, sure. I'll just give a quick overview of what we do at Littleton Water to protect water quality. We not only sample, our 3 public water supply wells at Whitcomb Ave, Beaver Brook, and Spectacle Pond. Also monitor 57 different groundwater monitoring wells throughout town. So those are located at sites of potential contamination. So typically industrial or commercial properties where there's the potential for a release of a hazardous substance. And we typically sample those once a year, sometimes twice a year if there's an increased threat. And we'll monitor those for 80 different contaminants at all 57 of those monitoring wells. And that's a very unique program. There's very few communities in the state of Massachusetts or even the country that undertake such an intensive effort to protect the aquifer. And we have a dedicated environmental analyst on staff that does all of this work. That was my former position. Now we have a newer person in that role. And again, there's very few communities that even have an environmental analyst staff person in the water department. I think there's only 8 communities in all of Massachusetts that have such a person on staff. So that's what we do at the potential contamination sources, sampling all of those 57 monitoring wells every year. We also, at our 3 public water supply wells, those are sampled even more intensively. I think we take over 3,000 samples a year at those wells. So we're monitoring for hundreds of different potential contaminants that could be in the groundwater. It's a very proactive approach. It's how we discovered PFAS in the Spectacle Pond well. That was an emerging contaminant nobody had even heard of just a few years ago. We were able to catch it early and implement some actions that Nick had described early on and sort of get a head start on the whole thing. So that's kind of overall the approach we take. We work very closely with DEP on all of this at the state level. Anytime we find a contaminant over drinking water standard that they've established or that the US EPA has established, we report that to them immediately so that they're aware that either there's a contaminant in our public water supply, like in the case of PFAS, or that there's been one identified at one of these commercial or industrial properties. And then at that point, DEP will step in and sort of take enforcement action on those properties at that time. And that's just a way that we work collaboratively with them to protect the water quality here in Littleton. And similarly, they do some sampling on their own at the, as directed by DEP, either themselves or through contractors. They'll monitor some of the larger facilities in town, and if and when they discover some kind of an issue, they reach out to us and make sure that we're aware so that we can be proactive in our planning for water resources here in Littleton.
Great, thank you, Corey.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add to that, and I've said it at a town meeting before, but it's probably worth repeating. This community has always been very vigilant with water quality, dating back to the early 80s, and a lot of it stems from the issues that were enacted with a few Superfund sites. But going back to Savas all the way through Corey and now Matt Silverman, this community has always supported protecting the environment. So when there's concern, I think we saw a lot on Facebook this past weekend. We're okay with that. We want the community to have a heightened awareness of what they're putting in their body, and we appreciate the questions that come our way. We're happy to answer them. One other thing with PFAS, and I talked to the Board of Health about this a little bit, but the the contamination of Spectacle Pond seems to be very complex. And Corey could probably talk to you about it for 4 hours, but I don't think you guys want that tonight. But it seems to be a lot of little contributing factors that of PFAS in that watershed. And Corey and his team have been working diligently to try to find a responsible party, because that if we're able to identify a responsible party, we'll be able to get funding towards these projects. We've also recently have joined a multi-district court case down in South Carolina, which is in a lawsuit against Dow and DuPont, 3M, I believe, right, Corey?
That's right. Yeah.
To try to recover, no, that's a lawsuit against the manufacturers of PFAS that knowingly still manufactured it after they knew there was a potential health risk to it. So a lot of that we don't necessarily publicize because there's not really anything known yet, but we are actively working to recover funds through the DEP and litigation to try to offset that cost. Because as you guys know, it's a huge cost to the community. It's a huge impact to rates. Something we don't take lightly.
Great, thank you, Nick. Are there any questions or comments from the board for Corey or Nick?
As always, just they're in front of any issue that could arise, and appreciate your proactive approach and just educating the community. It's always nice for us to not have to walk into the grocery store and get smacked in the face. You guys always keep us informed and the public informed. So thank you for that.
Yep.
If I could, Madam Chair,
Certainly.
I just want to take the chance to applaud the water department, Corey and Nick, and everyone involved for their efforts to stay on top of things or ahead of things and being so transparent about it. They're far ahead of a lot of towns. My first experience with PFAS was up in Devon's, where I went to some meetings up there and found out about it. And at that point, I found out how many towns had not acted on it at all and how much more testing that town does than other town does. So I think it's important that townspeople recognize that they're out there doing a diligent effort to make sure our water is as pure as can be. So I just want to say thank you.
Joe, to that level, I don't think Chris Stoddard ever takes any credit for this either, but he's working hard on the landfill. He's done a lot of good things to help support our department with one of the town's assets. So, that shouldn't be forgotten either.
Good point, Nick. Thank you for bringing
Andy's
that
selfless.
up. Thank you, both of you, Nick and Corey, for coming here tonight and explaining a little bit more about PFAS and the processes we do have in place to protect the residents and our water supply. And the board, as has already been stated, we certainly appreciate your proactive approach and diligence. And we are very fortunate that we do have the water department doing all that they can and being so active and diligent. And we have professionals on staff qualified to handle this type of situation. So and Littleton does a lot more than most. And so I appreciate you coming forward and reiterating that to the community and also letting them know that you're there if they have any questions. I think signing up for the alerts is a great idea. I hope that more residents take advantage of that resource and opportunity, because it's a better way for them to stay informed. I think it's difficult oftentimes to go, sometimes to go to a website and say, oh, I should check on that, see what's going on today. But if there's an alert that they can sign up for that can go out to them, I think that's the best, a really great tool and resource. And I hope residents take advantage of that. So thank you again for coming. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks.
you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Okay, now we are on to execution of quitclaim deeds. Mr. Ansaldi?
Yes, let me unmute myself. Yes, Madam Chair. So this is just a follow-up from the last town meeting that there was at the special town meeting. There was Article 19, which was open space parcels at the Turkey Farm Estates that that we're looking to have the deeds accepted and to execute the deeds and finish the process off of getting the open space parcels as well as those streets that you mentioned in your introduction to going over the agenda today. So 7A is for the open space parcels. And I do have a map on there because I know, Joe, you had asked for a map, so.
These don't include the farmhouse and the barn, do they?
I don't believe so yet.
No,
Okay.
Yeah,
no, not yet.
right.
Do we know, Mr. Layden, when those are going to be transferred over?
In talking to Maren, she thought that the timing would be for fall town meeting because there needs to be more discussion about the ownership, what we'd end up doing, and also there's still some construction debris and material that's still on that parcel from the developer as they're finishing up some of the last lots.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about the access to town land on the right-hand side of the map? Isn't this supposed to be a right-of-way so a path could be completed like the Eagle Scout was doing last week that connects that all the way over to Foster Street?
He did mention that, Joe, and I don't know how that connects and where that connects.
It was through the Herget land that we acquired. The Herget land is up like in the 13B area, I believe.
Here?
Well, it goes out to Foster from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was.
But Anthony, I mean, I think also the scale of this map, there is a small, almost like 10-foot wide strip that is directly underneath the words Durkee parcels. You can almost see it by a darker line. That then accesses it to the larger open space. So it's just the scale just doesn't show it very clearly.
Okay.
Well, but to Joe's point, we want to make sure that is part of it before accepting, because if it doesn't show it, it should. Right? We should have as much information as we can have, and it should show what we agreed to. I mean, that was my understanding.
Yep.
I think Paul might have been on the board, but I know Joe and I were on the board, and I think Paul might have been on the board at the same time. When there was a tax title situation, potential foreclosure, and so there was the whole gift of that land came to us. So that was our connection to Foster Street from the Durkee.
That's all accurate in my memory, Chuck, but I'm not sure this parcel map would necessarily show that. Those are right-of-ways and such that wouldn't necessarily, show up in this map. This is not the full recorded map as such, I guess.
No, this map,
GIS map.
Yeah, this map was pulled from the town meeting warrant. Well, from the warrant book for the special town meeting in October.
There was also a portion of the K, and there's one other parcel that was part of the K estates because it was Durkee and K together. They were two separate articles. So that's just missing the other parcel that would get that little strip of land.
Right. Right. That'll come up at a later time.
Okay. Okay.
All right, I do have a motion here, and in reference to what Chuck just raised, the assumption, I guess, here, and hopefully Sue will capture it in our minutes, that, we raised, that Chuck raised that point, that in voting this, we're assuming that other issue, remains in force in some other fashion. But for current purposes, would you want me to read the motion, Madam Chair?
Please. Yep.
All right, I'll move that the select board vote pursuant to October 17, 2020 special town meeting Article 19 to accept the deed from Durkee Farm Builders, Inc. of Westford, Mass. For the 5 parcels of land being shown as open space parcel A, B, C, D, and E on a plan entitled Durkee Farm Estates, definitive plan of the subdivision, open space development special permit off Grimes Lane, Littleton, Mass. for Grimes Road LLC, dated October 10, 2017, prepared by Hancock Associates, subject to approval as to form by Town Council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Nordhaus? Mr. DeCoste?
Chuck DeCosta's aye.
Mr. Glady?
Aye.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye. The motion is approved as written. And now we are on to acceptance of streets. Mr. Insaldi?
Yep, so this is Part B, again from the special town meeting in October. Article 18 is the streets that were accepted at town meeting, so now we're just taking the deed, accepting the deed and executing it.
Okay. Any questions from the board on this? We're ready for motion?
Okay. Madam Chair, move that the Select Board vote pursuant to the October 17, 2020 special town meeting Article 18 to accept the deed from Durkee Farm Builders, Inc. and K-Land LLC, both of Westford, Mass. for Balsam Lane, Cypress Lane, Douglas Street, Fir Lane, Fraser Street, and Red Cedar Way. All roadways are also shown on the plan entitled Street Acceptance Plan in Littleton, Massachusetts, prepared for Durkee Builders, Inc. Prepared by Hancock Associates, dated August 20th, 2020, subject to approval as to form by Town Council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste?
Chuck DeCosta's aye.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Glady?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye. The motion is approved as written. And now we are on to annual town meeting warrant update for June 12th, 2021. I see we have Rebecca on the call from Town Council's office. She's going to provide an update regarding the Littleton stormwater bylaw changes. Hi, Rebecca.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I came before you a month ago to present draft revisions to the stormwater management and erosion control bylaw that are necessary to comply with the updated MS4 permit issued by EPA and Mass DEP that Littleton is subject to for the discharges from its storm drain system and road outfalls and so forth. I appeared before the Concom that same night and before the Planning Board on March 18th to discuss these revisions. And based on all these three discussions, we've made a few tweaks to that draft bylaw amendment. And that revised draft bylaw amendment is in your packet, along with the short cover memo describing those, fairly minor tweaks, and also a draft warrant article should you be ready to go ahead and approve this as a warrant article. The one change that I want to highlight to follow up on a comment that was made by one of your members is a revision to the provision regarding the planning, giving the planning board authority to specify the precipitation estimates to be used by applicants in their stormwater runoff calculations for their stormwater designs. So based on the comments made when I last met with you, we've added language to that provision, just clarifying that it must be a regionally appropriate, widely accepted data set, and referencing specifically as examples the two that are out there that are the kind of the only two candidates really that people are using. So tonight I'm just here to see if you have any more questions or comments after you've had a chance to take a look at all of the bylaw revisions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm
Sure.
sorry, Chuck.
I was going to say we trust Rebecca.
Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity to remind the board that today is Rebecca's last day that she'll be appearing before you. Rebecca is moving on to Mass DEP in the General Counsel's office. Rebecca's done a lot for the town over the course of her time, and I know that we greatly appreciate everything that she's done. And best of luck to her. And we're also looking forward to Marika, who's going to be taking over, I'd assume, and we'll be seeing more of her. Rebecca, best of luck to you.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. It's been a real privilege to work with all of you. So all the best to all of you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you for all
Thank you
you've
very
done
much.
for the people in town of Littleton.
Thank you.
We wish you
Okay.
the best, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you
so
very much.
Now we have somebody on the inside.
But wait, don't get distracted from putting. I want to leave you with the last useful thing. Don't get distracted from putting this in the warrant if you want to go ahead and do that tonight.
So is the board okay with this? Was there any other questions or? Looks fine to me.
Good to go.
I think we captured everything.
I believe it's complete and accurate. Good work.
All right. Thanks all.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank
Rebecca.
you.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks. Bye.
We're going to go through articles. Madam Chair, the next is inserting articles. So my thought is if we could get up through Article 19 tonight, and I have a slideshow, PowerPoint presentation, which I can flip through these quick, and we can answer any questions at the end, then the board can take a vote to insert the articles into the annual town meeting.
That sounds great.
So let me just pull them up. Okay, let me just move this out of the way so I can see. All right, so Article 1 is the town offices article. Article 2 is the annual report. And Article 3 is bills of prior years. And we do have one, it's small money, but there is a bill that we will have something on this article. Next article is the operating budget, and that's Article 4. Our next article, Article 5, is two parts to this article. Actually, the first part is the revolving funds and sets the expenditure limit for each one of those funds. And the second part of this article is we're going to be rescinding some of these revolving funds that Cheryl has deemed that is no longer necessary. So one is for inspectional services, one is for the pet cemetery, one is for the cemetery revolving, one is programming software, and the other is police cruiser seals. And the reason why these are being rescinded, unfortunately, Cheryl couldn't be here tonight, but some of these were deemed by DOR that not to be really totally, what's the word I'm looking for? Up to what DOR considers should be a revolving fund.
Up to their standards, didn't meet
There
their
you go.
standards.
Thank you, Cindy. Yes. So Article 6 is the Water Enterprise Fund budget. And most of these are the first 18 or 19 are really ones that you've seen year to year. Article 7 is the Sewer Enterprise Fund budget. Article 8 is the Park and Rec Enterprise Fund budget. Article 9 is the capital items from available funds. So this just shows you the language, and then obviously all the projects would be listed. Article 10, and now this is the senior center project, and there's two parts to this article. The first part is the borrowing article. So it's the borrow $1 million for the purpose of funding the design services. So that's the first part. And the second part is the feasibility study. So what we did here is we looked at old capital projects, and we wanted to close those out to repurpose those funds to put towards the feasibility study, which has to be done before we actually go out to design. So that's about $80,000. So this second part of the article deals with the feasibility, while the first part of the article deals with the borrowing.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
No, so did we have a discussion about the feasibility study? Because I think it's a little bit misleading, that terminology. Because
Yeah.
I mean, we know we need a senior center.
Yeah, it's not really, you're right. I know the word feasibility, but
Right.
what this is it's the study to determine the what the cost is going to be. It gets us closer to that number other than the number that we've thrown around, and we've only thrown around a number of like $621 per square foot, is because that's what's being built right next to where we perceive the senior center would be built. So that's why when we incorporate that dollar amount per square foot with a number, a total square foot for the project, and that's where we came up with the $10 million approximate. But to really get to a closer number, the feasibility study will actually do that. It'll determine if we can build out there, and it does all the boring tests and all that to make sure that this site is going to be okay.
Okay, so it's more like a financial
Yeah,
feasibility
yeah.
analysis.
That needs a different name to it, otherwise the public's going to be misled.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, we need to change that.
Yeah, we can inquire about that.
Yeah. The other thing, Madam Chair, I was just going to add on a similar vein is whether council had opined whether those two separate tasks should be part of the same article or whether they should be two separate articles.
Yeah, he did, Paul. We had a meeting with town council, and the rationale was, why not just put them together, even though that the borrowing article is 2/3, but they both go hand in hand. So
that's fine. I just want to make sure the question was asked.
It was asked. Thank you.
All right, great.
Do we want to suggest language for that right now? I mean, I think just putting the design to fund the design for the senior center project.
Well, the design is the $1 million, Chuck. I can ask town council if he has a better word.
Yeah, it is misleading.
Preliminary, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Something. We'll have to think
Talk to
of.
council.
Yeah, if anybody has any great ideas after, feel free to.
We had this exact conversation at the COA Vision Committee this afternoon. And perhaps we should also speak to this when if we do need to talk to this article at town meeting, just to clarify what these funds are going to be used for, because I agree it's confusing as it's reading now.
Okay, good points. Duly noted, and we'll follow up on that. Okay, so the next article, Article 10, we've talked about this a couple of times. This is the host community agreement with Northbridge. So this is basically what the board has decided at the last meeting, how the $1,080,000 will be spent. Just to get clarification, I know that the last time on that slide, it said Littleton Conservation Trust, and it's the way that the HCA language is, it's right here, and it's actually the Northbridge will donate to the town's Brown Woods Gift Fund the sum of $40,000 upon issuance of the demolition permit and building permit for 153 property. So it wasn't LC Littleton Conservation Trust. That was an error on my part. So I wanted to clarify that tonight. Article 12 is the CPC budget. Article 13 is an amendment to an Article 8 of the May 6th, 2019 town meeting to make some changes to what was previously approved for the Long Lake renovation project. Article 14 is what you've seen, it's the compensation grid and amendments to the recognized holidays. Article 15 is the Park and Rec, just in case they were to run a deficit in their account, that this article would allow for them to use their retained earnings to make up any deficit that they may have. we're not saying right now that they have one. This is just in case that they do need it. Article 16 is to fund the collective bargaining agreements, which we're currently in negotiations with our 4 unions. Article 17 is the use of the debt exclusion stabilization to fund FY22 excluded debt. Article 18 is per our financial policies to put money into the stabilization fund. And Article 19, same thing, to put money into our capital stabilization fund per prior policies. So that's the first 19 that I think that, that the board could vote to insert tonight into the warrant. And then next week, next Monday, we'll go through the remaining articles, probably with the exception of ones that the planning board is still working on, for which we would insert those last few articles on April 26th.
So I'm fine with that, with the exception of the language change, the feasibility study language. Can we still insert the article and then change the language after the fact, or do we need to hold that out?
We can make the changes, Cindy, because some of these, like the collective bargaining one, we're still negotiating, but we know that we're going to have an article with just the content of the article is still a work in progress. So,
Gotcha. Okay. Good. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay,
Madam Chair?
please.
Yeah, I'll just incorporate my comments and then I'll make the motion. My comments actually, I'm fine with the 19 as we've discussed them, including the point you just raised, Madam Chair. But looking at the remainder of the list that we're looking to deal with next week or thereafter, at least by the 26th, there are 4 that I would like to suggest as placeholders. Are all things that we've talked about before, and especially when we extended the deadline for town meeting by moving town meeting date. We have the expressed intent of being able to deal with them during this time period. One is the bylaw language necessary to implement the building and land use department, as we discussed. The second, and I know the Board of Health is internally circulating drafts, they would like to go forward with the transfer from services that are currently offered through the Selbrd Allied Board of Health to local in-house health officials, which would have budgetary impact. Third, we've had dialogues, a number of us have had dialogues with Chris Stoddard. There's a lot of contradictory language in the code relative to DPW versus Highway Department. We need to clean that up. And then fourth is just a placeholder article for the sewer department, for the sewer articles, in case we need to make any changes necessary to satisfy federal financing requirements. So I don't have specific language for any of those, but I just would request that we add articles onto our list there so that we can deal with those before the deadlines pass us by.
Right. And we need to change selectmen to select board too.
that was changed at the last town
Was
meeting.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you know what we didn't change? It was, I think, our select board, selectmen policies and regulations.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Paul, can I ask you, so are you in favor of the DPW versus in lieu of the highway terminology?
I think we've already broadly accepted that. It's the term, it's just our bylaw language in many places references Highway Department when we really have already adopted DPW. So it's more of a language cleanup than anything.
And we did that, and you're going to see in the list of articles, we actually are dealing with treasurer to treasurer collector. That's
I saw
Article
that.
28.
That's what prompted me to remember
Think
that
of
we
that.
hadn't. Yeah. So I mean, we can deal with the details between now and when we next meet, and certainly between now and the 26th. But I just want to get them on the list so they aren't lost track of.
Yeah, these are, yes, we will put that on our list of articles.
Okay.
Okay.
Then with that understanding, then I'll move that the select board vote to insert the following articles onto the warrant for the 2021 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council. And I'll specify articles 1 through 19 as they were presented to us in our packet in tonight.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Aye.
Mr. Glavy,
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste,
Chuck DeCosta's aye.
and Cindy Napoli is aye. So the motion is approved as written. And now we are on to item 9A, annual report dedication.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is just let me stop sharing this. We're just circling back on this issue from a prior meeting to see if the board's ready to make the dedication for the town report. Sorry, just look.
So there was some conversation at the last board meeting about the process for the dedication of the town report. There was a follow-up conversation with the town clerk, and it was, I did a little research myself, and historically, the town clerk has made recommendations to the board for the dedication of the town report. My memory didn't believe so, but I was corrected when I looked back at prior meeting minutes way before my time about the way the process was. But one suggestion that I did make to the town clerk was perhaps having family members write the bio for the dedication, as opposed to having her take on that task, just to make sure that the information is accurate and that it does is approved by the family members. It would be easy just to ask them to do that part of the process. And I think it would help her out as well too, because she certainly has enough of a workload herself. So that was just a suggestion I made. Whether she wants to do it that way, it's up to her. But it was just something that I did recommend. So that being said, does the board have any comments about the recommendations that were made?
Yeah, Madam Chair, since you and I both spoke to this at the last time we discussed it, for a number of years, we have been getting recommendations from the clerk, but my memory goes back far enough that hasn't always been the case. And in any event, it's our responsibility at the end of the day. And I don't have any problem with the recommendations that have been made before us, but I would add one to it. And that would be Carolyn Webster, as stated before.
Yeah.
And I would reiterate what you just said, in that whatever process we use, and it doesn't have to be put on the clerk, it really ought to be in our office, at the administrator's office, that we do whatever is necessary to draft a bio of each of these folks, and then certainly at a minimum pass it by some member of the family of any of these people that we're choosing to honor, so that there aren't mistakes or errors put out in print. But as far as the specific recommendations made this year, I certainly support the three of them, and I would add the one that I mentioned a moment ago, Carolyn Webster, for reasons I stated before.
Okay, I agree.
Same.
Okay. Excellent. Any other comments from anybody? All right, good.
Okay, there isn't a written motion, but I think I could fashion one pretty quickly here, if you'd like one,
Sure.
Madam Chair.
Please.
All right, then I will move that the Board of Selectmen dedicate the annual town report for the year 2020 in honor of 4 deceased residents of the town: Earl Banks, Kathy Knox, Mary Stenstrom, and Carolyn Webster.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Glavy,
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste,
Dr. Costa's aye.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
and Cindy Napoli is aye. Motion is approved as dictated, and I just want to say thank you to the town clerk. Thank you to Diane for working on this. We certainly do appreciate the time and effort that goes into putting this together for the board. So thank you very much for that. And now we are on to item 9B, donation of land, parcels U14510 University Drive, U1450-0 Manchester Drive.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So we had these 2 parcels were owned by the gentleman, Walter Lennon, who has passed away. His family reached out to our office and asked if the town would be interested, that they did have back taxes that they owed on those. It's for $814.27 for the University Drive address and $872.38 for the Manchester Drive address. The town council has opined that if the town is interested in acquiring these parcels, that they may do so in a deed in lieu of foreclosure of the rights of redemption pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 77C. That statute provides that the acceptance of the recordings of the deed, any real estate taxes or other municipal charges and liens shall be treated as having been paid and shall be accounted for by the city or town in the same manner as tax title foreclosure has been completed. So not sure what the pleasure of the board is, if the board is interested in these two parcels. If you had a chance to look at the map that was in your packet. Any questions with that? I can call up the map if that's helpful.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Certainly.
I spent a little bit of time on GIS this afternoon looking at these parcels, and so University Drive, it appears it doesn't exist. Right. Between it dead ends off of Shaker Lane at the top of that square and then doesn't reappear at all. Although it is on the GIS plan as I assume a right of way. And then there are parcels between University and I guess what would be either the YAP land, but it's owned by the school. So I guess I'm curious what the status of that road is, and if the town wanted to use it as a building lot, is it viable? And or what's it's not, is it adjacent to the YAP land? I know it isn't, but like what's the status of that road?
Is it a paper road?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I believe it's just a paper road right now. Part
of University Drive is built, and
yes,
here,
there's
right?
probably maybe 150 feet off of Shaker Lane, and then it dead ends.
Yeah.
And you can see on Google Maps, there's a street view of the end of it. It goes in, it just turns into woods. There's nothing there.
That could all be developed though. If somebody purchased enough of it, it could be developed. So this would be, at no cost to us. We're not getting taxes on it anyway. Right. At no cost to us. So it could be something that we could hold, as tax title property. And that could be a way for us to block future development of, whether it be Tulip or, further development on Tulip or University or Manchester.
Yeah.
And Chuck, I do believe that we are the owners of the properties to the north and to the south of that. So we're kind of, that would complete the sandwich really,
Right.
and
Yeah. It's about a third of an acre total, both lots together.
0.216 and 0.143 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Mr. Glavy.
It's cleaner than taking it through tax title too this way. Accept it as a gift. It's a lot easier. We'd spend more money than the money owed on it on legal fees to make the process happen. So I think the best way to acquire it is to accept the gift.
Right.
Friendly.
And I appreciate the family giving us this opportunity. So
they don't want to incur any cost in donating the gift, and there may be a slight cost associated. Yeah. So if just keep that in mind, if that's the pleasure of the board, that we may have just a cost that we may be absorbing to just finish this transaction.
Like clerk fees and so forth.
Correct.
A few $100s maybe.
Yeah, maybe surveying or something that might need to be done. That town council would tell us exactly what we need to do.
I was going to say there's no motion provided. I would be happy to make a motion, but I would be more comfortable if the intent of the board is to accept the gift, to have council phrase that language so we waive waive the taxes owed on it. Agreed. And accept it properly and let the language reflect that as it should legally.
Okay. All right.
So I can bring that back then, Madam Chair, the next meeting and have council craft the exact motion.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think that's. Yep. All right, great. Next, we're on to execute agreement for the DHCD Local Rapid Recovery Plan, LRRP.
Joe, you want to take it?
Sure thing. Madam Chair and board members. This is basically an agreement with DHCD as well as the consultant for the local rapid response program. Myself, Maren, and Chuck had an initial meeting with the consultant last week. We're finalizing details to engage businesses to talk about this program, to assess the impact COVID has had, and to develop some strategies to assist businesses moving forward. So we did not receive the funds directly. This is basically being provided by DHCD. So it's just a three-way authorization to allow for this work to go forward. Included in the packet is not only the agreement, but then also basically an agenda as far as some of the work items to be done over the next 2 months.
Great. Any questions or comments from the board on this? Right.
Yep, got a
Excellent.
motion?
Please.
Move that the board vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the DHCD's community agreement under the local rapid recovery program.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Glavy,
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste,
Dr. Coast is aye.
and Cindy Napoli is aye. The motion is approved as written. And now we are on to item 9D to designate. What?
Sorry.
No.
I'm under the gun. Matthew said I had to be done by 9 o'clock.
Wants to see the game
Go
too.
Gonzaga. I know, Matthew. I'm just trying.
Let's go.
We've got
This is all
25
taking
minutes.
up valuable time.
Oh, if I could just add one thing
Go.
in 27 parts.
Can you mute him?
Sorry,
I'll
Madam
raise my
Chair.
hand.
I was going to just say if Joe has been working on this, if he wanted to bring this last one home.
Sure, thanks. So this last item under TA and ATA update is designated as a special municipal employee status for senior tax work-off program. Within the additional information section, there's actually specific State Ethics Commission ruling dealing with the specific instance of identifying existing employees and allowing them to be able to partake in an abatement program such as senior tax work-off. So it's fairly straightforward because there's basically 2 positions with the town. That what would be needed is for anyone that was an employee of the town that qualified for the senior tax work-off program, we would just have to identify them as a special municipal employee to allow them to partake in that abatement program.
We get it, Joe.
I just wanted to hit it home, get Matthew to sweat a little bit.
Okay, ready for a motion, Madam Chair?
Please.
Move that the board vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the disclosure by municipal employee of financial interest in a municipal contract as required by GL. Should that have been MGL? Whatever. Chapter 268A, Section 20B, allowing Susan Raymond, an existing employee, to take a second position with the town under the senior tax work-off program.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Glavy,
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste,
Aye.
and Cindy Napoli is aye. The motion is approved as written.
I'm sure Sue would like to thank you all for doing that. And I'm sure a lot of town departments would like to thank you as well, because Sue does a lot in addition. So this is just going to allow her to do that much more for us. So thank you.
Well, we want to thank Sue because
Absolutely.
she does a lot for us and she does a spectacular job on behalf of the board. So anything we can do to help, we certainly appreciate
Yep.
Yeah, agreed.
the ability to
Well,
do so.
but I'm going to take about 35 minutes to edit the minutes that you did for us.
So we have meeting minutes from March 22nd.
I do have one, Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure.
On page 7 of the minutes, which is page 169 of the package, under paragraph C, Tim Lanrasius, his name is a little bit murdered. So
Okay.
just ask that we amend that.
Okay.
Come on, Sue.
All right.
Tomalin, Russia.
Oh,
It's close. Right,
it is.
the initials are right.
Right.
This is true. TR.
From
Alex,
Vladivostok.
With the board's indulgence, I'll accept that as an amendment and move that the select board vote to approve the regular session meeting minutes of March 22nd, 2021 as amended.
Second.
Motion,
Spasiba.
it's, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Glavy,
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Da.
Mr. DeCoste,
Aye.
and Cindy Napoli is aye. The minutes are approved as amended, and that concludes our meeting for this evening. We will be back on April 12th.
Good
Motion to
work,
adjourn.
team. Go Zag.
Was that a motion, Paul?
Motion to adjourn. Yeah.
Second.
All those in
Second.
favor, Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Glavy,
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste.
Well, I just wanted to, aye.
Aye. Cindy Napoli is aye, and that is it. Good night,
Now
everybody.
go Gonzaga, Matt.
Thank you all very much for your cooperation in this important matter.